All right, so let's talk about the winners from last night's Democratic debate. It was the third Democratic debate. It was on ABC. ABC was absolutely abysmal. We already went through who the losers were in a separate segment. But now, the winners. And allow me to say, there were a few of them. So first and foremost, America's dad, Bernie Sanders. Here, some people are going to say, Kyle, you're biased. But I don't think I am. I mean, I do love Bernie, but that's beside the point. I think that for the first maybe 35 or 40% of the debate, he was struggling, but it was just because of the hoarseness in his voice. It's obvious he's been on the campaign trail for a long time, and he's been doing a lot of rallies, and he just threw his voice out, man. His voice is very hoarse. He lost it because he's busy, trying to save the country. That annoying thing. So I don't know how much you could hold it against him. Is it possible that voters will hold it against him? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Yet to be seen. You could say the optics are bad. But I don't, by like 35 to 40% of the way through the debate, his voice got a little bit better. And he really started hammering home on his points and hitting his stride. So I think he ultimately did a very good job. And I do think he was one of the big winners of the night. Now, another big winner is Elizabeth Warren. I mean, she, in these debates, regardless of what you think of her substantively, and again, there are criticisms of her substantively that I've brought up. I've done many of them. But the way she's trying to come across in these debates, and she's kind of succeeding at doing it, is, I am like Bernie, but a little wonkier. Like, that's the lane she's going for. Now, again, that's not to comment on what she's like substantively, because we all know she's Bernie light at best, because she's got giant blind spots on, like, all of foreign policy, for example, among many other issues. But the lane she's paved for herself is, I'm going to be like the wonkier version of Bernie. And she's kind of unapologetically siding with him in all of the intra-party debates that happen within the primary debate. So I think she does come across well in that respect. So I think she's one of the winners also. Maybe there's a criticism of she's still a little too professorial in such a populist age, but I mean, she's walking that line in a decent way, man. And you could see why she's surged in the polls in recent months. So Bernie and Warren, big winners. Another winner, and this is one that I saw on Twitter, some people disagreed with me on, but I really think it's the case, Yang. I mean, Yang is and I have disagreements with him. Everybody knows that. Crystal clear. I'm not a Yang supporter. But he's different. He's a different kind of candidate. He's not an establishment candidate. There is a reason why he's running. He obviously very deeply cares about his universal basic income, and he's pushing for that come hell or high water. But then he's also giving decent answers on a lot of the other questions. On foreign policy, I think he always gives a good answer. He always leads with, I signed a pledge to get out of our forever wars, and then he goes on to explain his position on that. I have a massive, massive, massive disagreement with him on charter schools. Apparently, he's a proponent of charter schools. But however, to a apolitical observer watching that debate, when that question was posed to him about charter schools, he handled it well. He basically said, no, I'm pro-good school. That's my whole position, is I'm pro-good school, pay teachers more, but yes, effectively, he's like, I'm kind of pro-charter school, but he didn't say it. He found an artful way to kind of get around that question. Now, again, and sorry, hashtag Yang Gang, he is too libertarian for my tastes. That doesn't mean, because this is where they, misrepresent my position, they act like I'm saying he's libertarian. I didn't say that. I said he's too libertarian for my tastes, which is a factually correct statement. Now, why do I say that? Well, there was that provision on his website which spoke about doing an automatic sunset clause on regulations. I forget the time frame that he gave, but it was a matter of years. You automatically sunset government regulations. I think that's an abysmal idea. He went on Jimmy Dore's show, and Jimmy Dore asked him about a living wage, $15 minimum wage, and he's against it. Now, in his defense, he says, well, I have other ways of getting there, so, but I don't support that policy. Okay, well, I support a $15 minimum wage. What do I want me to tell you? So, I have massive disagreements with him. However, fact of the matter is, he's a unique candidate. He's an interesting candidate. He's not an establishment candidate. He's carved himself a lane in this race, and he's doing really well with it. I get nothing but joy out of the fact that Andrew Yang is beating like 10 of the, more establishment candidates handily. I get nothing but joy out of that. So I do think he was one of the winners because, again, he's got a lot going on and he's interesting. He's not a standard boring politician. Okay. And then finally, this person's a big winner in my opinion. It's fascinating to see the fallout, though, from his performance because the reaction in the media is not the reaction I had. I think Castro did a wonderful job. Now, does it matter? No, because he's so low in the polls and he's going nowhere. But here's the thing. I think he knows that. And I think that's why he did such a good job. It kind of reminds me of Chris Christie when he was done. He had no chance. It was like the last debate he was going to qualify for. He was polling so low. And he was like, fuck it. I'm going balls to the wall and I'm going right for little Marco's jugular. And he did. And it was really good. And he destroyed him, famously. So I saw the same kind of thing with Castro. Now, interestingly, you would think Castro would maybe throw his lot in with the Biden wing and the Kamala wing, and be a little more on the establishment safe side. No. It looks to me like Julian Castro knows where the energy of the party is, knows it's with Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and those characters on stage. So he's kind of throwing his lot in with them. And he went after Biden viciously. But it was kind of badass. He really schooled him in a variety of different ways, and we're going to cover that segment in a little bit. I'll give you the specifics. I'll show you the clips. But I think he did a great job. Now, mainstream media is saying, how dare you? He didn't do a great job, and he was too harsh. And, I can't believe he said the thing he said about Joe Biden, and they're pulling the offended card, and they're acting like he crossed a line. Nonsense. He didn't cross a line. Oh, please. He kind of pointed out Biden's cognitive decline because he's like, you just said the opposite thing 2 minutes ago. Did you forget that? And they're like, oh, how dare you bring up such a thing? How impolite. But he's right. He's right. What do you mean? You think people at home are not realizing Biden's cognitive decline? It's obvious. Now, it's not his age. It's not ageist. He's not saying because he's old. No, he's saying, no, the issue is he has cognitive decline. If he was 23 and he had cognitive decline, you could point out the cognitive decline if he's trying to be the most powerful person in the world who makes all the decisions. So the media is like, no, you've gone too far, good sir. And he's like, no, agree to disagree. So I think Castro's 100% right, and I think that this is how the media subtly, has their own favorites that they pick and choose. And they like Biden more than they like Castro. And so they're like, just defend Biden. Let's just defend him in this instance and say, how dare you? You're so impolite. You're so uncivil. This is not something that should be in the realm of debate and discussion. So we're going to ostracize you now and act like you're the problem. Nonsense. It's an establishment protection racket for Joe Biden. I think Castro did a wonderful job. Now, again, it's not going to matter because he's so low in the polls, but clearly on his way out the door, he's throwing some haymakers at people, and he's throwing his lot in with Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and he's banking on one of them winning, and then hopefully gunning for maybe a position in the administration. That's the sense I got. That's the Machiavellian angle to that all. But either way, winners, in my opinion, were pretty clear throughout the night. Bernie, Warren, Castro, and Yang.